Everyone again, and welcome to Conversations for the Future. Just a reminder that we are streaming live on LinkedIn today. So this meeting is an intimate setting, and then we do have a wide audience on LinkedIn Live. And these presentations will be
recording in progress.
Will be recorded for YouTube. If you're here in Zoom, you can ask questions in the chat or by raising your hand at the end of each segment. Each segment is just 30 minutes long. Our speakers will present for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a 10-minute Q&A. And if you're listening on LinkedIn or watching on LinkedIn, please put your comments in the LinkedIn comment section, and we will do our best to get those over to our speakers. So our first speaker today is Jared Angasa. He's a strategist, activist, and master storyteller. He's the executive director of the Human Space Program, and he works on many other organizations, which he will tell us about. He leverages collective intelligence and indigenous wisdom to harmonize humanity's relationship with Earth. Jared, what a delight to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here. I will start off today by honoring the Kumeyaay, which is the original indigenous stewards of the land I'm privileged to be calling in today from San Diego. It's like Mitakuye Oyasin, which is a Lakota way of saying supreme gratitude to all that has come before us. I'd like to start off that way. I will start off also by saying, addressing my relationship with Human Space Program. As executive director there, I'll speak for a moment about our mission and how it relates to this discussion about sustainability. It's sort of a fundamental element of who we are. Also, we're happy to be partnered with Foundation for the Future, before I forget, and grateful for that, and grateful for sharing our community. I know a lot of the Overview Roundtable members are here, including Tim Chrisman and Rebecca. Thank you so much. The idea for the Human Space Program originated with Frank White, who is also on this call, in his book, The Overview Effect, Human Evolution and Space Exploration, back in 1987. That was 36 years ago. HSP is a central project to develop a citizen-authored blueprint for conscious space migration and stewardship of the solar ecosystem. We created this organization to inspire conscious space migration and ensure the sustainable, ethical, and inclusive stewardship of the solar ecosystem. And that includes Earth. This is, we're sort of extending our discussion off the planet that we live on and looking at what does it look like as we start to migrate off of that, and how do we do that mindfully and sustainably. Frank said a while back, I'll quote him here, "I hope people will come to understand that space exploration is not about escaping Earth, but is about coming to appreciate her more fully." I'll rest on that point for a second. I love that. And that is kind of the essence of the overview effect, I think, is that we see that people having the privilege to go out into space and look back at this beautiful blue marble we live on have come back with this greater heightened appreciation of the planet that we come from, of the fragility and the beauty, all of those things. And most of them have come back with a heightened sense of responsibility about how to steward the planet that they live on as well. Talk more about that soon. In the discussion, in the lead up to this discussion today, I guess there was kind of three overarching questions about in regards to sustainability. And how does this help us become multiplanetary as a society? And how does this help us now? And why should the public care? Very good questions. And I'll address those kind of collectively in the presentation today. So I think in any time, I'm a strategist, by the way, by trade. So I'm always, kind of like looking, what's all the elements that play here? What are the considerations? I get hired often because of just experience and kind of understanding all of things to consider. So here are some considerations about sustainability I think are important for us as we begin the conversation. There is first of all, there's a perception in the space, or that the space industry is polluting the environment. We talk about sustainability, we talk about the impacts on the environment is typically the first one that comes up, though I'm going to get into a few other elements of sustainability as well. Um, it's by the way, that is happening. Sure, anytime we send something with rocket, fuel into the sky, it's going to affect the planet negatively. For now, that is true. It's also important to understand that these companies are creating innovations in propulsion at a very, very rapid pace. That is, if we look at just for perspective, if we were to take the commercial airline industry, put it all together and look at the annual carbon emissions, and then take the space industry and look at our rockets going into space and all that, and add that up over a year's time, even with increasing space flights that we have right now, or with commercial and all that, we would have to increase the rockets going into space by 47,000% just to get to what we have today with our commercial airlines. So just a little perspective on this as we get started in the conversation. I think it's important to understand that and also from that space exploration, we are seeing some tremendous discoveries about how we can live more sustainably on the planet today. So I think it's important to start with that little piece of knowledge in our perspective. The next, I think I just want to talk about the idea of sustainability in space specifically. I think that is asking, when we talk about sustainability in space, it's how do we define sustainability? How do we prioritize it? How do we achieve it? What makes it, or what does it mean in the end, I think, for Earth? I mean, a lot of us, certainly environmentalists, are asking that question. What does it mean for Earth as we do this? What we value and prioritize most as humans, I think, we either intentionally end up creating it or we simply allow it to happen. So it's our priorities. I often will look at a situation and say, hey, your priorities are showing, because we can see what you've prioritized by what the fruit of that is. I often wonder if alien civilizations were to come to this planet, what they would surmise of what we're prioritizing just by looking around. Something I think about a lot. I think some of the big questions about sustainability in space are about the fact that we obviously haven't mastered sustainability here on Earth. Just hit the elephant in the room here. So what, we're asking questions like, what is this? What will happen? What do we think will happen as we migrate off the Earth? What are we expecting? Are we escaping Earth and trying to start over? Are we supposed to stop space exploration and then harmonize our relationship with Earth and then carry that on? That's come up a lot. Are we to do them all simultaneously? And if so, how? I think it's important to remind ourselves, again, what the term sustainability actually gets into and all the considerations, because it has been so overused and misused and misappropriated over the years. But I do think that the original implications of sustainability are exactly what we should be focusing on today. It generally refers to the ability of a system, a process, or activity to continue over time without depleting or damaging the resources on which it depends. It's important. So this obviously can refer to a wide range of context, but anything from environmental sustainability to social and economic sustainability. And it's important to understand the actual all the elements that are considered in this. One of them is resource use. Sustainability requires responsibility or responsible use of natural resources such as water, land, energy. And it means using resources in a way that we should be using resources in a way that allows us to regenerate or replenish over time rather than depleting them faster than what they can be replaced. That's what we keep running into in the resource department. I'm excited for the day when we can get our resources from asteroid belts and things like that, and we can treat this beautiful planet as a sanctuary. That's part of why I'm here in the space community, is in the hopes of things like that happening, and I do believe it can. Environmental impact is another aspect of this. Sustainability. It requires us to minimize the impact of human activities on the natural environment, including reducing pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, and other forms of environmental degradation, and so on. There's also a social and economic equity aspect of sustainability. I think people forget some of that sometimes. Where it requires us to ensure that the resources are distributed fairly and that all people have access to basic necessities such as food, water, shelter, etc. It's a very important aspect of sustainability that I find is often kind of in the back corner of a conversation, if at all mentioned. It also requires us to think long term, like this long term perspective. Um, there's a guy, Ari Wallach, that I really love his teachings. He has a process, I guess, and a book by the same name called Long Path, and it's this kind of long path thinking that is really beautiful. It's longpath.org, by the way, if you want to check it out. But I really love Ari's work on long-term thinking, and what he says talks about us becoming good ancestors. I love that idea. Being intentional about how we show up and what it means for the ripple effect for the people coming after us. Another aspect of sustainability is interconnectedness. It's of our different understanding, how our different systems and processes, and looking to seek to find solutions that balance competing priorities and minimize unintended divisive consequences. We have to understand our innate interconnectedness as we develop, as we look at sustainability. The overview effect has been one of the most profound experiences that we've noted of articulating maybe the profundity of our interconnectedness. So by taking these considerations into account, individuals, organizations, governments, and so on can work to promote sustainability in lots of ways, from natural resources and that management to urban planning and business practices and so on, all the way down to space exploration. So as we talk about sustainability, this is what we're really talking about. It's important, like when I say the word sustainability, I'm covering all of those aspects, all of those and more. Not just the environmental aspects, but also the social and economic implications and all that. And we have to consider all of these important factors, I think, if we are going to have a sustainable situation. We're discovering new important considerations every day also. So it's also important, I believe, that our concept of sustainability evolve as we do. All right, so let's look at the reality of space exploration. I'm an environmentalist, and I've had a lot of interesting conversations about this. So I think framing is important. Let's start with the idea of exploration, just here on Earth. No one, maybe I don't think anyone anyway believes that we shouldn't have left Africa as humans 60,000 years ago, as we began to migrate around the Earth. We came up to the north and explored, and then all over into the Western world and so on, and we're still exploring today. There are vast swaths of our ocean we haven't even looked at, and areas of forest and things like that we're still discovering new things and new species and all that today. But exploration has always been pivotal in our evolution. It's evolving us into who we are today. The challenges of exploration, experimentation are what draw out our most human expressions, I think. It's where we find who we are. It leads to discovery, and it leads to this diversity and depth as a human species as well, which I think is very important. It's in our genes. T.S. Eliot said, "We shall not cease from exploration, and in the end of our exploring, we will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." And again, I think that's articulated really well with the overview effect experience. When people have left, and there actually, I should have gotten that quote. I can't remember what it was, but the quote about we went to the moon and did all these things, but it really in the end helped us to understand our relationship with Earth all the more in all new kinds of ways. And really, not just to understand, but I think thank you, Rebecca. I think to have a heightened respect and gratitude for the Earth and the fragility, again, as well as the magnitude of just beauty and awe that it brings. So exploration is a part of how we discover, I think, who we really are, who we can be, We don't really begin to understand our own true depth and abilities until we're pushed to our, past our limits. We have to overcome something challenging. That process can often, deepen our capacity for empathy as well. And I think that's an important part. And another quote from another astronaut, John Glenn, he said, "To sit back and let fate play its hand out and never influence it is not a way a man was meant to operate." We as human beings must be willing to accept that we are not perfect, that we are not infallible, that we can make mistakes, but we must know that we can make a difference, that we can, through our process of exploration and discovery and knowledge, make the world a better place. And that kind of points a little bit to how I came into this discussion. I came in at the space community as a human rights activist and environmental activist. I learned of Frank White's work, and as an activist, I was living in Rwanda or Kenya, I think at the time, and I was in Rwanda, and I recognized this example in the overview effect of our interconnectedness, and I was looking for ways to speak more eloquently about interconnectedness, and lo and behold came Frank White, who speaks very eloquently about it. And I, along with Frank, look at the Earth as this living, breathing organism. We're part of it. It affects us. We affect it. We can see that. We are, I think, anyway, all Earthlings. Someday we'll be Martians and Lunarians and Salandrians, whatever we're going to call ourselves, living in other places in the world. But for now, we're all Earthlings. We come from Earth, and she's still our most optimal environment for supporting life as we know it. And I care a lot about humanity and the awe-inspiring planet we're privileged to live on. So I've spent my life studying human behavior, economics, and strategy. I realized that at one point that if I wanted to be a really effective activist, I'd better also understand economics and capitalism. So I studied them and still do. Then I worked in those systems, inside those systems, cultivating sustainability, inclusivity, and diversity, et cetera. And later had another epiphany. And I thought, well, I realized that the people designing and developing our future in space sort of just designing our future in general. So I'd like to be part of that conversation. I want to influence our future. And it would be, by that rationale, strategic for me to work in the space community. So as I was sort of enamored with the overview effect, I joined Frank in this discussion and the philosophical and consciousness discussion over the last 8 years, I've realized that this community is made up of a lot of people that not only care about the vitality of our humans and planet, there are also people that are really working hard to ensure it. I've been delighted to see that here in our space community. The people designing our future in space are also, I think, the most likely candidates to help us figure out how to overhaul agricultural practices that are destroying the Earth's ecosystems and create sustainable sources of energy. And I think that will have a very positive impact on our economics as well. The space community is thinking about how we all survive off the planet. The foundation of sustainability or sustainable strategy is to know all of the elements that need to be considered, like we talked about before. The folks trying to survive in outer space are good at considering a whole lot more elements than we usually would think of because they have to. Everything depends on it. If they're in the ISS and there's a pinhole, everybody dies. So we got to pay attention to the details. So as it pertains to explorations or space exploration, the sustainability discussion isn't just some social responsibility thing we're getting into. It's a matter of life and death, success or failure. Space community is constantly studying sustainability because we can't afford to operate in space any other way. So space it's sort of like this canvas, I think, for what are like if we wanted to know what Earth would be like if we destroyed all of our ecosystems, it'd probably be a lot like space. So we have this canvas to work with now. Many of our sustainability practices on Earth today came from discoveries that we made in space. And we were looking at how do we survive in space? We came up with environmental monitoring, all the Earth observation satellites and all those programs for looking at environmental change, deforestation, ocean temperature, things like that. It covers weather forecasting. We have satellites that have the ability to track weather to help us respond more effectively to hurricanes, tornadoes, and things like that. There's been a reduction in the impact of some of those things. We have renewable energy, all the renewable energy aspects that we've had to dive into to be able to operate in space that obviously then have come back to Earth and helped us have more renewable energy here. Water resource management is a big one. I mean, we have to recycle urine in space. If we can do that, I think that's going to help us figure out some things here on Earth, and it certainly has. There's also a justice and activism aspect of our space observation that I think is not widely known. I worked in Sudan and Rwanda, Kenya, Congo, in these areas where we had monitoring systems that were monitoring militias and things like that to watch activity, and then there was intervention. Suffice it to say, I saw some victories through all that. So I think there's sustainability is one of those things that when it comes to talking about space, it's intrinsically built into what we're talking about here. And I think, we look at the ISS, we had 21 continuous years of humans from 15 different nations that have been living and working in space on the International Space Station, which has transformed our understanding of the planet that we live on today. I think it's the same group of humans that are going to help, figure out how we sustain and become sustainable on this planet as we're also moving off of it. We have to understand that human behavior and culture are a big part of this. The culture, it refers to our beliefs and values and customs, behaviors, all the things that make us a society with our languages and religions and social organizations and so on. Culture plays such an important role. Even the epigenetics and those aspects play such an important role. And sustainability is, I think, important to understand that it's only relevant as it pertains to humans. If there were no humans here, we wouldn't be talking about sustainability. The Earth would just continue. But we need concepts like sustainability in order to prevent our own, self-destruction. That's a good first step.
Yeah.
So I know that I have 19 minutes on my timer here. That's okay. I'm watching it as well, but I mentioned let's see, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, but I think that we have a beautiful opportunity here for a better conversation. And if we want a sustainable planet, I think we need to make it culturally popular. I spoke a little bit about the culture part. We need to financially incentivize it. I think that once we figure out how to do that more effectively, we're going to solve a whole lot of problems. So I think, it's important to ask let's see. There's a question about what do we do right now? What can we do? And I think what we need to do is start right here on Earth. This is where we practice being good humans. It's in other words, it's where we get to be good stewards of our environment and our resources. This is our chance to become stewards rather than conquerors. We say at HSP a lot. On Earth, we've been able to get away with some experimentation and neglect and even some destruction. We can't do that in space. We don't have that luxury, if you will. So I think that this being in space and that canvas forces us into greater levels of cooperation and unity. And I think that's part of how we continue to evolve. We at our Human Space Program have created I'll put a link in here, but it's a campaign called Making Space for the Environment. So we're having environmental discussion. We also have an inclusion council. We're talking about inclusion and representation, all of those kind of things. I believe the most important thing we can do is prioritize sustainability in all of our efforts and lead by example. Require other organizations to operate sustainably as well in order to have our support and patronage, and work to amplify the message. My quick recap here is that sustainability isn't just about protecting, ecological resources. It's about environmental impact for sure, but also social and economic equity, long-term perspective, interconnectedness, and so on. And it depends on our ability to operate sustainability, or space exploration depends on our ability to operate sustainably. It all also depend on us operating sustainably here on Earth. And that's what we're doing here at Human Space Program. Protecting the garden in which the Earth sits. That's the solar ecosystem. We're just kind of extending that love of the Earth off of it as well. And recognizing that our discovery leads to diversity and depth and all kinds of things that we want to have as a society. I don't know, I think that as we attempt to expand off the planet, we're likely to continue learning a lot about how to cultivate a more harmonious relationship with our natural environment. We've seen that already. And maybe the process of working together to design all of this, I think it will help us truly come together in harmony with this phenomenal planet that we call home, and maybe even each other. So thank you all for listening, and I'm always excited when people are excited about talking about sustainability. So
wow, Jared, that is so beautiful, and we can see your passion, and we can see that you could speak with us all day long on this. This is something so inside of your heart, and that you're dedicating your life to, not just space, but to the Earth and to the environment, and to a beautiful culture where we give back and we share and we honor. And we ran out of time to ask you any questions. How can people get in touch with you? Would you put your information in the chat? And then please do, everyone, Jared's going to put a piece that he wrote about making space for the environment. He'll put that in the chat too. Please read and share. We are spreading awareness about space sustainability and the importance of it and the longevity of it, and how it will certainly, Jared mentioned capitalism and business, long-term sustainability actually pays us back. And it's good for investing also. So it's not just a one-sided political argument here. This is for everyone. And so thank you so much, Jared, for your contributions. I know that you're working together with Frank White, and we did put your organization in the chat. I'm also part of that organization, humanspaceprogram.org. Please visit us, please get involved, please learn more about space sustainability and about the long-term project that Frank White has founded and that Jared is spearheading. So thank you so much, Jared. What an honor to have you today. And if there's nothing more, we're going to move on to our next guest.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Adriano, hello. Let me...
hello, yes, I'm here.
And so it turns out that the captions will be available on the LinkedIn live stream. And let me go ahead and introduce you. One moment. Here we go. Okay, so welcome, Adriano Autino. Adriano Vittorio Autino, maybe if I say that right, is co-founder and former president of the Space Renaissance Initiative. SRI is an intercultural nonprofit association whose mission is the opening of the space frontier, low-cost access to space, space tourism, industrialization of the geolunar space, use of near-Earth asteroids, and the full development of the space economy. Adriano has a background in software and systems engineering and has worked as a project manager and entrepreneur in real-time automation systems. His insatiable curiosity and the desire to engage in frontier fields have led him to be with us today. Welcome, Adriano. Feel free to share your screen and go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
So I have to thank you very much for giving me the possibility to present here today. And it's an honor for me. And I had previous opportunities to discuss with Frank White, and it was wonderful to feel 100% in agreement on the philosophy and on the strategy, on the, let me say, policy focus. So it's I'm very happy to be here and to continue the talk with Frank and the other colleagues. So may I share my screen?
You should have permission. Is it working?
PowerPoint presentation. Okay, it is here. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we see it
Fine.
and it is in presenter's mode. Please proceed. Thank you.
Perfect. So my presentation today is to illustrate a campaign that Space Renaissance International has kicked off since a couple of weeks. So we are at the very beginning. We are getting other organizations to support this campaign and to make it a real viral campaign. And the campaign is to add an 18 Sustainable Development Goal to the 2030 agenda of the United Nations. For that scope, we will have a panel at the United Nations General Assembly the 18th of September in New York City. We will have a whole day, two sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. The morning session will be, to be quick, Space for Earth, therefore the use of space technologies for benefit of Earth communities and emerging countries, and very much inclusive. And in the afternoon, we will talk about expansion into space, so the civilization expansion into space. That, in our opinion, is the only thing that can make the other 17 SDGs really sustainable, because 8 billion people cannot make it anymore on one only planet, and for a lot of reasons, resources, energy, environment, climate, and so on. So we have to start moving outside in order to allow our Mother Earth to take the breath and recover a little bit from the big troubles that we caused to her. So, okay, let's go. 2015 can be named as a turning point in history because reusable rockets have dramatically decreased the cost of transportation from Earth to orbit, and such process is paving the path towards civilian space development and astropolitical uses of space as well, and is creating a growing interdependent relationship between life on and beyond Earth. So 2015 can now be identified as a turning point in history, signifying a change of paradigm from traditional aerospace to a new space age. The UN 2030 agenda was made in the old space age, when outer space was not considered as a dimension that helps to increase the sustainability of development. Space science and technologies are supporting social and environmental goals on Earth for many years, yet that will not be enough to warrant a really sustainable development. To allow a true sustainable development, it is indispensable and urgent to start civilian space development outside Earth boundaries. So the UN 2030 agenda needs to be updated. We propose an 18 SDG to be added: space for all, civilian space development, and communities living beyond Earth. So the title is still evolving, okay? Because the campaign is in the beginning. New organizations are coming in the promoter group, and they are proposing to refine the title and the abstract and so on. So, okay, but this is the substance, more or less. So what means a sustainable development? It is widely believed that sustainability means nothing else than reducing human activities on Earth in order to decrease our ecological footprints on this planet. But that would imply a rapid decay of civilization. As stated in the 1986 UN resolution, development is an universal civil right. We propose a more advanced concept of sustainability. The only way for 8 billion terrestrials to moderate their footprint on Earth would be to commence developing elsewhere. Expanding civilization into space will progressively relocate industry off Earth and consequently relieve the burden of our development on home planet. Earth's green lungs and seas will regenerate themselves, Mother Earth will take a breath, and human civilization will resume growth and become more inclusive. Okay, so if we have a look, a general look to the 17 SDGs, we can see that they are not, they don't have a hierarchical organization. we may think that the order somehow express a priority. So if it is so, it means that the social goals, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, and so on, are the priority. And then we go to the industrial growth, the social growth, reduced inequalities, and so on, the environmental goals, and peace and justice, and so on. So we don't know if the creators of the 17 SDGs had this priority in mind, and maybe not. Maybe they just wanted to put all of the goals on the same level. However, I think a hierarchical organization is needed. So what can we note? We can note that the 7, 8, and 9 SDGs that are related to economic and social growth, so affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, and industry, innovation, and infrastructure, are key for realizing the other 14 SDGs. It is clear that if we don't have social growth, we cannot do anything on any of the other SDGs, not against poverty, hunger, and so on, but neither against the environment, to recover the environmental issues, because only more technology, more engagement, more scientific engagement can, for 8 billion, never forget that we are 8 billion people. So our problems are very complex because we are many people. And to decrease is not a solution, because to decrease will mean accelerate the implosion of the civilization. So let's go ahead. We understood that these 3 goals are the main goals, are the pillars, the key pillars to sustain all the rest. So the problem is this one. This is a possible reorganization, a hierarchical reorganization of the goals. The 3 goals of industrial growth assure social growth and cultural growth to realize the human life, social goals, and environmental goals, and the methodology goals about peace and collaboration and so on. The question is, are these 3 pillars sustainable? This is the real question. Our answer is not. If the SDGs will be confined within the boundaries of planet Earth, it is inevitable that the industrial development goals will conflict with the environmental goals. Some conflictual factors are energy demand. It is increased by electronic and web society. People think that staying at home and communicating like we are doing now is a less consumption of resources. Not true. It's more consumption because it requires a lot of energy more. And so the electric mobility, the electric cars, and everything around by electric energy. A scarcity of raw materials, key materials, rare earths, raising new resource wars and conflicts. Pollution increased by disposal of batteries and other technological wastes. Oceans overexploitation and pollution. Social issues increased by multiple crises. We don't forget the pandemic, the coronavirus, and now the war, the stupid war going on. And we had a report by ISPRI yesterday saying that the world is spending 2.234 trillions for military expenditure in 2022. So there is an increase of 3.7% with respect to the previous year. So the tragedy is that we are having several multiple crises, and we are working for that and not for life. This is very, in comparison, the expenditure for space is only 100 billions a year. So it's less than 5% compared to the military expenditure. These things have to change, definitely. And we, the space community, have the duty to change this thing, to work for that. So this is what we need. Civilian space development, the 18th SDG, will sustain all the rest of the SDGs because it will assure abundant resources from the solar system, environmental relief on Earth because we move outside. So our moving industry outside in perspective will halve the demand for energy on Earth because demand of energy on Earth will be only the one of the private citizens. Industry will take energy directly from the sun in space, where it's very more effective and so on. So this is our hierarchical reorganization. The key word is sustainability, but this is another concept of sustainability with respect to let me say, the mainstream, no? This is going on nowadays. The sustainability of the 7, 8, and 9 SDGs is the real challenge. We can only do that beyond the limits of planet Earth, and expansion is indispensable not to grab space resources to feed Earth society anymore, but to give terrestrial citizens the freedom to settle in the solar system. That would mean to build a trans-terrestrial society and to start profiting of the space diaspora. First of all, survival of civilization. Have to mention trans-terrestrialism is a concept developed by Dr. Marie-Louise Heuser, specialist in space philosophy, and she is the director of our space philosophy laboratory at the Space Renaissance Academy. Okay, then I will give the link to our website, so if someone wants to know more, it will be possible. So, okay, Krafft Erike called the moon a space kindergarten because it is a place near Earth where we can have experience of living in space and working in space without going too much far away. It's only 2-3 days far away from Earth, and it would be easy to recover and to correct errors and all these kind of things. So Mother Earth is here greeting the child going to the school on the moon. Yeah, it is a metaphor, of course. What will civilian space development will be the benefits for the SDGs, for the main SDGs? Energy. Progressive relocation of the industrial development to the geolunar space will restrict the energy demand on Earth's surface to the private citizen. Social growth. The development of the civilian astronautic industry will raise economy at double figure, business opportunity and employment accordingly. So that will be dramatically important for making new jobs and allowing emerging countries to fight and eliminate poverty and so on. Peace and collaboration, because there will be not any more practical reasons for wars for resources, because the resources of the solar system are many magnitudes more than resources on Earth. The environment of planet Earth will be relieved, and the cosmic safety also will be improved. This is something that is not considered by the 17 SDGs, because we have a danger coming from space. There are killer asteroids possibility to this, that happened several times in the past, and there are cosmic radiation. The sun itself is a source of terrible storms, magnetic storms that is dangerous also if we are protected by the atmosphere, because if the magnetic storm is powerful enough, it can damage life on Earth as well. So our concept of expanding civilization is a global expansion concept. We are now expanded, let's say so, in Earth orbit with a lot of materials, debris and active satellites, and two space stations. To expand means to expand 360-degree in a globular way all around, including the geolunar space and the near-Earth asteroids, and going more outside to Mars and to Jupiter and so on, to the asteroid belts and so on. So the space policy, we have let me say two main strains to consider: space policy and space science. For space policy should finally adopt a strategy for civilian space development. That means sustain the development of fully reusable, safe and ergonomic vehicles for civilian passengers and cargo transportation. To push the production of fuel in space, mining the moon and the asteroids resources. To push the development of technologies to remove orbital debris and to reutilize them as in situ space resources. I will talk briefly about space debris later. Start building logistic infrastructures and habitats in orbit and airborne Lagrange points, endowed with simulated gravity. Promote moon and asteroid mining to get material for space infrastructure construction. Sustain the new space industry worldwide by grants and fiscal reductions. To promote training and education collaboration between space agencies, private enterprises, schools, and universities worldwide. Sustain the space tourism industry and market segment. Currently, the only sector trying to transport untrained civilians in space. That's very important. We cannot think to keep on with the space exploration strategy that only bring to space trained military astronauts. We need to allow normal people like you and me to travel in space and to work in space. And last but not least, to have the non-governative organization to spread their philosophical contribute to the space community, since there's no strategy without philosophy. This is very important thing that I am sure my friend Frank is sharing 100%. Okay. Okay, I said policy and science, and the science challenges are enabling life in space. Living and working in space is totally different from short exploration scientific missions. The mission requirements are different, particularly with respect to human health. There's a number of scientific issues which need better consideration and priority. It is our main recommendation that such research strains, as well as the above-mentioned space strategy, will be promoted in every context where strategic decisions are undertaken. So, which are these scientific challenges? Protection against solar and cosmic radiation, necessary to allow long time and permanent residence in space. Simulated gravity, necessary to avoid quick change of human physiology, giving the freedom to space settlers to go back to Earth when they like so. We should not think that when people emigrate to space can never come back to Earth, because that would be a deportation, not a better freedom, but a limitation of their freedom. Then a green environment and water in space, necessary to assure an environment similar to the earthly one for biological and psychological need. Low-cost space transportation systems for civilian passenger and cargo, low acceleration, and safe and comfortable atmospheric re-entry mechanism. Going to the end, a quick look of what is going on this front of the condition to kick off civilian space development. Fully reusable, safe and ergonomic vehicles. The cost of Earth to orbit transportation will fall under $1,000 per kilogram when Starship will be operative, the first fully reusable launch vehicle. Low acceleration, protection from cosmic radiation and ergonomics, allowing untrained civilians to travel in space. The next milestones. In 2023, we hope to have the first 100% reusable orbital vehicles operative. And so that will be downsize the cost of the orbital transport. In 2025, we could start maybe to the industrialization of geolunar space by recovering and reuse orbital debris. Within 2030, we could have a fuel production in space from lunar and asteroid resources that will further downsize the orbital transport cost under $100 per kilogram. And within 2030, we could hope to see a humanist expansion strategy to take place in the main spacefaring countries and space agency, development of life and health protection technologies in space, cosmic radiation, simulated gravity, green environment, ergonomics, and comfort. And the sum of all these conditions, the downsizing of the cost and the living condition will make possible to start working beyond the limits of the Earth's atmosphere, and definitely. Orbital debris, recovery and reuse. The possible outcomes are claim Earth orbit, eliminating dangerous obstacles to navigation. Use the great richness in orbit, because the debris cost a lot. The satellites. Before being debris, they were satellites. Always remember, they costed a lot to design them and to put them in orbit. Now, the only solution that we see that our researchers are prospecting is to deorbit them, making them burn in the atmosphere. That is crazy. We have to start reusing, because that is a richness. And the orbital debris and wreckages have an advantage with respect to the new things that we put in orbit. They already have an orbital velocity that can be used. Don't need to be boosted anymore. In orbit, the materials are processed to produce fuel in space for passenger and cargo transport vehicles, and kicking off the orbital industrialization. Mining asteroids get materials to build space infrastructures and produce fuel in space. And furthermore, big asteroids can be digged inside and transformed in rotating habitats with simulated gravity and protection from cosmic radiation. Mining the moon to extract many precious materials, advanced astronomy on the far side, space kindergarten, as I said before, experience with closed artificial ecosystems, and boost a transterrestrial economy. Some materials from the moon, oxygen extracted from lunar regolith, water, ice in poles, hydrogen presenting high concentration in poles, metals, iron, titanium, aluminum, silicon, calcium, magnesium, rare earths that are needed for the electric for the batteries of the electric devices and so on. Helium-3 that is useful for the fusion, nuclear fusion. Coal and nitrogen extracted from lunar regolith, and regolith for construction. This is what we need to do as a protection of life and health in space, from solar radiation, from galactic radiation, from a supernova, and from asteroids and cometoids. Space tourism should be defended and supported, because it's not just a toy for super rich. So this is a duty for space community, because we have to give another narration to the people, different from the one of the general media that say that space tourism is just a toy for super rich, and it is a let me say a disprice for the poor people and so on. That's not true. This is the only industrial sector working to bring untrained civilians into space. This is a very important task that nobody else is facing. And space tourism is the link between astronautical space exploration and the space settlement, civilian space settlement. With growth of the market, the ticket prices will decrease, so progressively all the people can travel to space. Like now we can travel with low-cost airlines. We can travel everywhere in the air. Okay. Last point, bring space and science in schools. The history of space, as well as the history of scientific research, should be added to all education programs, all levels from primary to university. We need to teach the history of love, not just of empires and wars. Our children have to learn the history of the people who dedicated their life to humanity for the progress of civilization. The 18th Sustainable Development Goals shall bring on board this great educational value. So I have concluded. I don't know if I am in time or not. However, here...
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you very much. Here you can sign our pledge for the 18th SDG. You can also just use this QR code to do it. You go there and it is a change.org pledge. So it's we need to collect thousands of signatures. You can also add your organization to the group of promoters on the spaceonessence.space page. You can sign both. And okay, this is all. This is the link to my book, Greater What is Possible. And I think, okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Adriano. What an amazing presentation and so inspired. I would love to, I know that Frank wants to go to the UN with you in September, and some of us would love to support you in that too. And I'm sure that all of us want to sign this this proposition that you're making to for the United Nations. So yeah, Frank's got his thumb up. Frank White of Human Space Program and the Overview Effect. Do you have any words for Adriano?
I don't know what I can add to Adriano. We agree on everything. No, I think what we're trying to say, that's it's kind of new for a lot of people. And you've heard me say it, and so has Jared, but there is this narrative that those of us who talk about leaving Earth are abandoning Earth. No, we're not. We're helping the Earth. And Adriano had that cute graphic of the mother saying goodbye to the child. We're like the kids in the basement who won't get out and leave the parents alone. And the parents are getting old and they need a break. We're fully grown. We're ready to leave the nest. We've got the technology. We've got the intellect. We can do large-scale space migration. And we can help planet Earth if that's the primary interest. And I think Adriano has put it very, very well. People just don't fully grasp yet that we are just straining the carrying capacity of Mother Earth with 8 billion people, and that there is an answer, there is a solution. And I do think having this 18th SDG and tying it directly to Earth is a great idea. So I'm really happy to be part of it, and I think the Human Space Program is too.
Yes.
Yeah, we are making progress, of course. We are talking with NSS and with IAF. Therefore, if we will have these two big organizations, it is possible that our proposal will have better opportunity, better chance to be successful.
This is so exciting. Your presentation today, Adriano, will be posted on YouTube, so we can promote it on social media, everyone here. And all of our live listeners listening and watching on LinkedIn can also help promote this. And this is how it starts, with just a few of us caring about something so deeply and then reaching out to those of us who we're connected to, because it is clear to me, and my heart was joyful as you were presenting, because I thought, you know, we're all in this together, and we have the same values and the same goals. We want the same things, and this is amazing that people across the way are working on these same exact issues. So we are so excited that you came in today and that you talked about this 18th Sustainable Development Goal, Adriano. And I know that Frank wants to get you over at the Human Space Program to present to his group of people as well. So thank you so much, Adriano. Please,
I have just a final recommendation for us, for the space community. Because unfortunately, we keep on talking to each other. We have to become politicians and to become opinion leader public opinion leader. We have to go outside to speak to the people. It is time. We have to unify our effort and to go outside, because if we don't do that, humanity, civilization will not succeed to win the challenge that we have in front of us. This is so philosophers are very important. Philosophers, because philosophers have a capacity to identify things that nobody see, that are evident but nobody see. So philosophy have the duty to put it in a clear for the people, and politicians, because we need politicians that start working for this program. So I'm sorry to take more time than okay, but I think this is essential. You're mute. Rebecca, you are mute.
Thank you, Adriano. Sorry about that. We appreciate the extra few minutes and your final comments, and just know that there are many of us who are in the front of the public, and we are willing to speak our minds and to become public opinion leaders. So keep in touch with us, and everyone who is listening, please follow up with Adriano, and just know that this is happening in September. We're going to start making some waves. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank, for your kind words and support.
Of course.
And we are ready with our next speaker, who is Maruska Straw. I am so excited. We have two representatives from Europe here today, Adriano Autino, and then also Maruska Straw, who is Executive Director of World Space Week. And Maruska is World Space Week Organization Executive Director. She's also a PhD student focusing on space traffic management, a 2022 IAF Young Space Leader, and an IISL Space Traffic Management Working Group co-chair. She's a delegate to the United Nations Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, and she specializes in international space law and policy. Welcome, Maruska. What an honor to have you today, and so excited for me personally, because we went to Harvard together, and so I'm so happy to see you back here. How have you been? And feel free to begin your presentation.
Hi, Rebecca, and thank you so much for your kind introduction. But before you and I jump off and start our own conversation, let me start my presentation. And hopefully you will see this on your screens. So, this presentation is going to be in two parts. First is, why are we even having this conversation? And then the second is about the World Space Week Association, or World Space Week, and why we do what we do. And focus on our work is going to be, of course, on Sustainable Development Goals. So let me start by asking, why should we care? Space sustainability is an investment in our future. It's very simple. Space sustainability is a concept that is also growing in importance. That means that not generally, but also in the space sector. We now recognize that activities in the outer space have long-term consequences on global space activities, but also on the whole humankind. If space becomes unsafe, it becomes unsafe for everyone. So to truly achieve sustainable level, we must work collectively and on a multinational, multi-level, multi-stakeholder approach, which means that academia, NGOs, the UN, the civil society, the industry, everyone has to work together, and that includes the general public. So we also know that global space activities are booming. Let me give you some numbers. Since 1962, the UN maintains a register of objects launched into outer space. Statistics show that on January 1st, 2020, 6,542 satellites, out of which 3,372 are active, are orbiting the Earth. So only in 2020, we had over 1,200 new satellites and new space objects registered, which is a great achievement for the whole society and for the whole humankind. Space activities are also now conducted by 65 countries. This is completely new, it's unprecedented, it's an incredible achievement, and it's really extraordinary to see. However, This also means that there is a number, and very large number, of unoperational satellites in our orbit. And that means that there are also thousands of small, uncontrolled artificial objects circling in high velocity and possess a potential threat to not only space, but also to our home planet, so to all of us. So why do we have to talk about it? Because we have to reach public awareness and interest. With conversations like this one, we are raising public awareness and interest, and we should never underestimate the power that well-informed public has. So shedding light on the importance of outer space and sustainability should not be overlooked. Raising global interest and awareness of the importance of space sustainability, and with that our reliance on space technologies, led to a great achievement of the United Nations. This is the adoption of the Guidelines for the Long-Term Sustainability of Outer Space, the LTS guidelines, by the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. This document is a great reflection on a global consensus on what responsible and sustainable space activities look like in practice. Also, we do not explore space just for fun. We do it so that we can better the conditions of our lives on Earth. How does this help us now? So we know that there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So before I go further, I would like to ask you all to think for a second, how many out of 169 targets that we identified are directly connected to space, and how many directly benefit from space? I'll give you a second just to think about it, perhaps write it in the chat. It's an interesting number. There are 65. This means 40%. And this is not even counting the telecommunications, right? So some of them are human rights, education, transportation, healthcare, weather monitoring, humanitarian assistance, peacekeeping, agriculture, water management. What does that mean? That means that we are so highly reliable on space technologies that even what we already have and already achieve cannot exist anymore if we don't protect the space. So it doesn't, a lot of people will say that, why do we have to explore space? Why do we have to invest? Why do we have to explore? Why do we have to go if there are so many problems on Earth that we should solve first? This is why we go. This is why we do this, why we're having these conversations. This is why we're exploring. This is why we're learning, so that we can assist life on Earth, so we can better the condition of so many people who really rely on space technologies. I would also like to say that this number significantly increases when we add telecommunications and telecommunication satellites into this equation. And this proves that without space exploration and also without sustainable use of outer space, we cannot achieve sustainability right here on Earth. I want to say that, again, this is going to be a common thread of my presentation. Space technologies and applications directly contribute to so many of the most critical aspects of SDGs and development of our daily lives. So, where does the World Space Week Association come into question? Our mission is to strengthen the link between space and society, and we do this through public education, through participation and dialogue on the future of space activities, using a UN-declared World Space Week as a focus. So World Space Week, as hopefully a lot of you know, has been declared by the UN in 1999 to be celebrated every year 4 to 10 of October, and has been having a significant growth throughout the past years. I'm losing my voice, I apologize. So we are a nonprofit, non-governmental organization, and we were founded several years ago. I'm not gonna even go into those numbers because I'm only going to make us seem old, but I would like to say that we are supporting the global coordination of World Space Week, and we are also permanent observers to UN COPUS, and we are members of the International Astronautical Federation. So our aim And our goal is to expand World Space Week and also the impact it has on education and society. We're volunteer managed and are funded through voluntary contributions. What's really important for us is that we take no position on space policy. Why we do this? To ensure that World Space Week remains open for everyone. So when we go to the UN or when we talk to our sponsors, partners, we don't take positions on space policy, but we communicate what is being organized over World Space Week. We give people a voice. We don't take it for ourselves. We really communicate what has been done during that week. We work with the space industry, with space agencies, educators, and other organizations. And we definitely have one of the largest STEM networks because we encourage the use of World Space Week as a platform to involve everyone interested in space. Since the beginning of inception of this association, we have been very much supportive of Sustainable Development Goals. And I would like to bring your attention to SDG 4, 8, 9, and 17, because these are the SDGs that are always in the back of our minds and are basically affected everything that we do. Through them, we help building the workforce of tomorrow by inspiring students. We are educating the public about the benefits of space. We help promote organizations that are involved in space, and we demonstrate public support for space activities. Now, if you will forgive me, I will just take a second to take a sip of water because I really lost my voice. I apologize for that. Just one moment, please.
No worries, Mariska. We're so happy to learn about this. And, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals are something that we've been really promoting and looking at. And there's something that I think if you're an organization or if you're a business and you align with these goals, it gives you almost an instant global credibility. Wouldn't you agree, Mariska?
I hope so. I certainly hope so. I hope you're right. And I do hope that we're actually discussing this SDGs because they matter, not as a niche. But I think my experience in working in the space sector has been incredibly positive. And I can only say with no reservation that people that I work with really care about this. And with that being said, I would like to take some more attention to, I would like to put some attention to SDG 5, which is gender equality, and to our World Space Week theme of 2021, which was Women in Space. So every year, our board of directors selects a theme. In 2021, that was Women in Space, because we wanted to put special focus on gender equality and, of course, celebrate accomplishments of women and raise awareness and contribute to solutions. What was really important for us was to inspire young women around the world to pursue STEM studies and future careers in the space industry. So just as a fun fact, in 2023, the annual World Space Week theme is Space and Entrepreneurship, which I think goes very well together with sustainability. And I hope a lot of you will join us in celebrating World Space Week this October. So in 2022, the theme was space and sustainability. And to bring a lot of attention to this theme and focus, what we did was ask ourselves a couple of questions that we were trying to answer with our programs and communications campaigns and everything else that we did throughout the year. First was, how do space technologies and applications contribute to sustainable development here on Earth? What are the different challenges for sustainability of outer space? And how do space technologies and applications drive progress in emerging space nations? So these questions were predominant in our activities throughout the year. Did we get all the answers? Unfortunately not. There are still a lot of open questions, of course, because when it comes to space, we can probably all agree that we don't even know what we don't know. But it was a great conversation starter. And I think based on the numbers of last year, it was a very successful year. So we had several activities planned. There was a social media campaign that focused on space sustainability, sustainable development goals. and also on the 169 identified targets that I mentioned before. We had a series of webinars and a podcast, and we also collaborated with several partner organizations that worked with us on raising awareness about space sustainability. The webinars that we organized were about sustainability of and from outer space, about future of space activities, LTS guidelines, and of course, emerging spacefaring nations. So let me tell you about World Space Week in 2022. We recorded a record number. We had 11,221 events in 87 countries. This shows how much growth there is and how much public actually supports World Space Week. And on the screen, you can see a map of all the countries that celebrated World Space Week. And, you know, it warms our hearts every year to see all this purple on the map, and hopefully we're going to have several more next year. And to all of those who are interested, I would like to mention that criteria for World Space Week are very simple. An event has to be space related, must begin or end during World Space Week, which is 4 to 10 of October, and one audience counts as one event. So that means that, for example, if your school having activities over 5 days, that's still considered one event. You can very easily become involved, because we are actively seeking partners, donors, national coordinators, and volunteers, also event organizers who would help us writing the story of World Space Week success. And you can reach out to us over our email address, and we will get back to you and would be very much excited to continue this conversation. And of course, Rebecca, please, you should also reach out to us. I'm sure that there is quite a lot that we can do together.
Yes, there's strength in numbers, and it's clear to me, just as with our prior speaker, that we're working on the same issues. We love space. We want to help manage space traffic. We want to help manage space debris. We want long-term space migration. We want the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So your work is so important to us, and I've made my notes to get in touch with you and to make sure that we organize a World Space Week event during the first week of October, the 4th through the 10th. And Maruska, what a pleasure to have you today. If anyone has any questions for Maruska, if you're on LinkedIn, please write them in the comments and we will try to get them over. Oh, Frank White is applauding you, Maruska. Frank White, the author of The Overview Effect. And if you're here in the Zoom with us, please feel free to raise your hand and ask Maruska any questions. She has dedicated her academic studies to space traffic management, so she's quite a little expert. And if you have any questions about space debris, space traffic management, or World Space Week, space sustainability, you can raise your hand right now or put those questions in the chat. And while we do that, Maruska, I just want to follow up with you on your space traffic management expertise. How's everything going? Are you still doing your PhD? Are you? What have you been learning? What's your greatest takeaway this year in 2023?
So 2023 is an interesting year for sure. And yes, I'm still pursuing my PhD, even though it was a little bit put on hold because of so many other commitments that I had. So I had to compromise academia, unfortunately. But I can tell you that we've been very active in the ISL, where I am co-chairing the working group on space traffic management together with my colleague Yuta Keuchi from JAXA. And with the whole group, we are now preparing an analysis paper on shortcomings, basically, and what still has to be done, especially in relation to Article 6. I'm sorry, I really have no voice today.
Do you have long COVID? I know I have long COVID, and I just all of a sudden I start coughing. It's been going on for a few months.
I think for the first time in my life, I think I suffer because of pollen. Something is in the air because I also have all the windows open. So maybe that's my guess. And I'm guilty of having several vases full of tulips on my my table. So that might not be very helpful. But what can I do? And we had a very interesting event during the legal subcommittee very interesting side event that was, we had several experts on space traffic management from academia, international organizations, and the industry coming together and talk about their perception and how they see it and what we need to really achieve consensus on how space traffic management should look like. So I think in the next couple of months, we're going to see some more developments. And then in the next couple of years, there's going to be a boom of different activities. And I'm actually very excited to see that.
Wow. Is this on the policy level?
Yes, policy and law.
Good. Wow. That is awesome.
But you also know me, Rebecca, like, that I think that there is no policy without law and vice versa.
Yes.
Like you cannot have one without the other.
Yes. You have to have the enforcement. It's like following the rules. You make your policy, it's like your best intentions. And then, if nothing's going to hold you to them, then you're not going to follow through. It's kind of like making a New Year's resolution or promising to do exercise tomorrow. And, if you don't have some kind of mechanism holding you accountable. Yeah, that's very good, Mariuska. So what would you... Oh, go ahead.
I'm a little biased as a policy person. So what I like to think is that policies are very lifelike, and very, very relevant and also very up to date. So I don't think that it's not policy is better than law, or just because something is not legally binding does not mean that it's not legal. But when it comes to space traffic management, what I do think is important is this multi-stakeholder approach of experts in technology and policymakers and lawyers coming together and really having something that reflects the reality of every day.
Yes. And it sounds like you're talking about having the decision makers, like you said, the stakeholders in the room. Because otherwise we're just talking about stuff. We're philosophizing. With all due respect to the philosophers in the room, philosophy has its place and is highly important. If we want to get things done, we do need the stakeholders in the room to make actual decisions and commitments to those decisions.
Of course. And especially when it comes to topics like sustainability or space traffic management, space debris, and so many others. These are topics that we all agree on. So we all know it's important. We all agree it's important.
Yes.
Because we all agree on something. The whole process, in my personal opinion, sometimes it's a little slower because of that.
Yeah.
If there was an argument around it, perhaps we would be faster with finding solutions. But because we all know it matters so much, I think it's a little bit slowed down because we know it matters so much, and there's no argument there, and that has pluses but also minuses. So we need to find a balance between one and the other.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a question for you because this is Foundation for the Future, and we're so honored to have you here today. And our work is in space infrastructure, especially here in America. We are working with Congress to help the long-term space infrastructure get put in outer space. What advice do you have for us, as from your background in space traffic management and space law and policy? What should we really focus on to help not create any, or better yet to say, to help promote space sustainability from your point of view?
Oh, now you found me. That's a very difficult question.
Oh, okay. Well, make it simpler. Like, how can we be better, Mariuska, if we're building space infrastructure?
I think, I don't know. I mean, you're already very good, but what I think is always important is to really have the public support, to have the outreach capabilities right there so that you can really communicate your message and your mission to people who will then listen. Mm-hmm. Because in my view, nothing really gets done unless there's public support for it. So if you want to build something, showcasing that it's relevant by showcasing how much public support you have for your messages, mm-hmm. I think is a very good path to be on.
Okay. Good. It comes back to storytelling, as always. Mariska, what an honor and a pleasure to have you today. Let's catch up soon, please. I always think of you, and I'm so proud of everything that you're doing in the space sector. And thank you for holding the fort over in Europe for us. And hopefully we'll see each other at the UN pretty soon.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. And please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to catch up sometime soon.
Okay.
And thank you so much for the invitation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll forward the videos to you also. And just a reminder, we were live today on LinkedIn. So thank you, Mariska. We will now move on to our next honored speaker today. That is going to be Lee. And Lee Stanke is the Chief Operating Officer at Cislunar Industries and the interim COO at OrbitFab. Both companies have government and commercial contracts to develop new technologies that enable space sustainability. During her career in aerospace and energy, Lee has scaled multiple businesses that leverage new technologies. As a partner to the U.S. Space Force, she led the Space Futures Workshop with industry to explore commercial views of the future of space. Lee is well published on a variety of technical topics and has become a sought-after speaker since honing her skills as an early producer and host of Conversations for the Future. So Lee, it sounds like you used to have this job here. Actually, I've seen some of your past videos. You did a great job. It's so nice to see you, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's delightful to be back, and it's fun to have that legacy and to see that my shoes have been filled beautifully, and we march on toward the future.
We march on. And just a reminder today, we have an intimate setting here in the Zoom room, and we are streaming live on LinkedIn. So we do have many listeners who are catching us on social media, and this your presentation today will be forwarded to YouTube as well. So welcome, and we are honored to have you. Please go ahead and start your presentation, Lee.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, I'm fangirling over Mariska. She and I worked on some things for the UN Space for Women mentoring program, and just she's a wonderful force for our industry. So let me share my screen. Got that. All right, can you see that?
Yes, we can see it, and it is in presenter mode.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so I am COO of Cislunar Industries. We do metal processing in space for space. We were founded in Luxembourg out of ISU in 2017 and moved to the US, Colorado, in 2019. So we've been a US company now for a good several years, and we've grown. I was the 5th employee at Cislunar Industries, and we now just hired our 11th. Full-time and part-time. And our team, even though we're excited about the future of space and we are aligned on our vision of the next industrial revolution in space, we are doers. We have backgrounds in real industries, terrestrially, building things, doing things, measuring them, and doing business about them. So we're really excited about making some of the ideas about space and the technologies and capabilities that we're developing real in terms of business and economic activity. We have developed hardware. We have multiple working prototypes of multiple systems, including our modular space foundry, which is a microgravity version of a terrestrial foundry in miniature. We have our modular configurable electric power converter, electromagnetic induction furnace, and a continuous casting subsystem that allows us to make rods of indeterminate length in space. We have closed over $3.5 million in dilutive and non-dilutive funding, including a Space Force contract that we just got, a direct to phase 2 orbital prime for $1.7 million over the next 15 months. We've met our first milestone on that contract already and excited to be working on that with our partners, Astroscale, Sierra Space, and Colorado State University. We have received $925,000 in NASA contracts. We are currently on our phase 2 with partners NanoRacks, KMI, and School of Mines, Colorado School of Mines, a great force in space resources. So excited to be working on that. And there's a picture there of our first mission, which was a parabolic flight to test some of our subsystems in microgravity, and actually variable gravity is really the best way to describe that, which was part of that phase 2 NASA SBIR. We've raised $665,000 in friends, family, angel, investor type dilutive funding. And then we've received a grant from the state of Colorado. They do an advanced industries grant for about 5 or 6 different types of advanced industries, including tech, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace. And we were one of the aerospace recipients. And now I actually am a judge on that program in the next round. So it's exciting to be part of that economic encouragement by government on these technology and capability developments. We also have an active commercial contract, which is new. We earned our first revenues and put a check in the bank for February. So that's exciting for a space company with a long-term vision to have survival mechanisms in place now. And we have money coming in for an additional government contract that we're finalizing the terms of right now. So really exciting progress since I arrived. I'm so proud to be part of the company. So what do? We have in-space salvage and recycling, in situ processing of mined materials. So basically what we're saying is we can take both man-made and natural materials through our foundry. And then we can do end-of-life disposal of sensitive assets. So I'll leave that in air quotes for Tim to interpret with his background. And the products that we make from those services include the materials that you might get from a steel mill, so wire, rods, tubes, sheet metal. But also when we make those rods, if we make them in a particular way, they can be used as metal propellant in a certain type of thruster for in-space transportation. And so that particular aspect of it is really exciting. So we're not only developing materials, providing materials to our customers, but also logistical capabilities. And then, of course, we can sell our technologies as well, the state-of-the-art furnace, casting, electronic and electromagnetic technologies, which have various terrestrial and in-space applications beyond what we're using them for. So you might ask, why are we doing this, right? Well, metal is expensive to launch from Earth and to deorbit as well. So as we know, when we talk about ADR, active debris removal, that's an expensive prospect that requires regulatory pushing. And so we realize there's cost on both sides of that value chain. It's also limiting to launch metals from Earth because they're limited in size and shape, because they have to fit in the payload of whatever they're being launched in. Finally, metal space debris is hazardous and sensitive. We lack the business case for deorbit, but we have new regulations that are pushing the 5-year rule, for example, which requires people to deorbit or in some way dispose of dead satellites within 5 years of their becoming not operational anymore. Metal waste crowds space stations. So we can say space station singular now, but at some point it will be plural. And the experiments that come up right now have boxes on them with corners that are made of aluminum and protective casing, and those aren't necessarily important to deorbit with the experiments when they're sent back down to Earth, but we do it anyway right now. And if we could turn that into something else in space, that would save mass on the down mass expense. And finally, metal can also be sourced in space. So man-made, lunar, planetary, and asteroid material can all be sourced and turned into something useful for us today. So Cislunar Industries, a lot of people ask us, well, how are you going to get the space debris to you? How are you going to get materials to you? And we fall right in the middle of the value chain. So we have partners like Astroscale, KMI on our various government contracts, but we have partners who capture debris, bring us the materials that need to be processed. We have partners on space stations who are going to host our platform. And so we don't do real estate, we don't do transportation or logistics. We only do the foundry operations of converting metal from one form into another. Then somebody can take it to customers, distribute it, and use it for manufacturing or transportation. Why now? So we've got, there are people who started years ago on projects that weren't able to survive, and we've got people who will come up with new ideas in the future that will have the momentum that we've helped create. But really, today is an excellent time to be starting this process. We have found, because we've been around since 2017 with talking about these things, and right now there's a real turn happening. There's a $4 trillion space economy predicted by 2040. NASA is committing $8 billion for space stations and the moon. And the DoD is just signaling huge demand. I like to joke that they're not just demand signals, they're demand sirens. Is what we're calling them, because it's just so loud. The entire conversation at the Space Warfighters Lunch at Space Symposium last week was about refueling and in-space logistics. And both companies I'm working for are active in that space. It was just so exciting to see that kind of pull from a real customer. And finally, regulatory bodies reduce tolerance for debris. So there's a lot of movement on, this new 5-year rule. What are we going to do about space debris from a regulatory standpoint? So very, very exciting there. On the NASA funding that I talked about on that second bullet there, we are actually partners with all of the NASA funded space stations in place and starting to build partnerships with the lunar folks as well. How do we do it? So the Modular Space Foundry is our patented, in fact, I think our patent is actually being issued today. All the claims on it were approved a couple of months ago, but we just today, I think, is the magical day when we actually get our patent issued. So very excited about that. We receive, the model here is that we receive feedstock from our partners, whether it's man-made or natural material. And it needs to be cut down and manipulated into cartridges or through our program into the furnace, which will melt it down using our various set of capabilities. And then we have end effects that will produce the different materials I mentioned. So rods, tubes, wire for 3D printing, sheet metal in the future. And actually, one of our rods has been sent to Australia, where it was tested in front of a live audience in a vacuum arc thruster from Neumann Space, who developed that technology, and it generated thrust in a vacuum chamber there in Australia while we were all on the phone. It was really exciting. Now, the use cases, I've talked a little bit about this, but just want to get back into it. We're first recycling of waste metal on space stations into wire for 3D printing for space station customers. There are a number of companies developing 3D printing technology for metal and for in space, including Airbus, Redwire, and a number of other companies. And we're talking with them and working through the space station owners to provide materials for those customers. We are recycling space debris into in-space structural elements, and we have NASA contracts, our Phase 2 NASA contract for that. And then recycling of space debris into metal propellant, which is what our Space Force contract is. And finally, processing of lunar regolith into ingots of mongrel alloys. We like to call them mongrel alloys, the little mutts running around. We have different metals combinations on the moon, and there are lots of people working on the mining technologies of processing mined materials into final products. One of those steps is called beneficiation. It's a real challenge on the moon because the materials that we use terrestrially are not all available. And so some of those methods will have to be changed. We'll have to look back hundreds of years to see how we did it before we figured out all those modern processes and chemicals. And so there's a long future ahead of figuring all that out. Lots of good problem solving. So on our metal propellant, just wanted to go into a little more detail about our space debris to delta V concept. So this is taking metal and you could have an ADR spacecraft, an active debris removal spacecraft, or other spacecraft, and it could have a foundry on it or hosted at a space station, which is our earlier model. And it's putting around, going to pick up debris or do other activities in space, and we can actually take that debris, melt it down, and turn it into a propellant rod, which then is put into the Neumann thruster, or there are now several other companies using metal propellant, and basically refill that spacecraft's gas tank with metal propellant. And the exciting thing is that it really only takes, less than 10% of the material of a specific piece of debris to do that round trip of going to get the next piece of debris. So it's very efficient. There's lots of material, 90% plus of the material is left over for manufacturing and other transportation uses. Cislunar Industries is partnering across the ecosystem today with lots of different companies and government agencies, and starting to talk to international partners. And it's just been really exciting to see all the response, right? I mean, we're a small company, but we're actively working with larger companies, and I'm able to be a partner with a lot of parties that we've looked up to over the years, and it's just really fun.